Hi, loves. So, I wanted to address an epidemic in womankind. This epidemic of the complex of anxiety, insecurity, and self betrayal. All of which boils down to this sense of I don't know myself, or I feel lost, I feel disoriented, I don't have my ground under me. And I would say it goes from subtle to full blown for a lot of us in waves and is often an underlying complex to all sorts of things. Anxiety, insecurity, the residual impact of self-betrayal or the habit towards self-betrayal is underneath of a lot of our actions, a lot of our relationship dysfunctions, a lot of our broken dreams. So I wanted to address them, and I wanted to address them in a very simple way. So on one hand, the way that I'm addressing them is I'm making 3 practices from her mystery school available in a deep dive series going for the rest of this month. One deals with harnessing anxiety. It's called Anxiety versus Instinct, and it's about understanding the instinct, the seed of true sober instinct that lies at the heart and the root of all overblown anxiety, how to get to that, and how to harness the power of that to cure, or at least to ease, anxiety. The other practice is a practice of healing from self-betrayal, of recovering, recovering the fracture of being that happens when self-betrayals play out. And then the third one is about finding your yes and your no, meaning really sublime, simple discernment, as in what is for you, what is not for you, and actually moving from that place. There is so much that is in between us, even on the inside. We have a yes arise, we have a no arise, and it often immediately encounters resistance inside before it ever encounters resistance on the outside. So there's often a little work to do there. So those 3 practices I'm making available as deep dives, pulling them out of the 9-month content of her mystery school because they are crucial and they feel core to me. And they feel core to this epidemic of dis-ease, unease in womankind that is preventing a resting back and down and in, even not only for ease for ourselves, but actually then to become true resource for our world. There is a great calling forward at this time. A calling inward, come home, and a calling forward, like serve your world. Your world needs you. So I've made those 3 practices available. The deep dives are available to register for, and there's more information in the email. But I also wanted to speak to them in this video, the 3 things, and how they relate, how they're complex, and the simple cure. So we're going to go cause and cure, 3 causes and 3 cures. So the first cause that I would identify as a root, a shared root, is I can't trust myself. Just that simple statement. But that statement is symptomatic of a state of being, right? There is a profound anxiety that comes when you realize that the only person who's always with you, the greatest ally you'll ever have, your constant companion, birth to death, yourself, is not trustworthy, or if you believe that. This work of earning our own trust is absolutely essential to becoming a woman incarnate, to becoming a woman, not a girl, to sitting in some amount of power that doesn't abandon us, sitting in ease in life, here with ourselves. So the cure for I can't trust myself is know yourself, but not to know yourself as a personality. Go ahead and figure out all your likes and preferences and dislikes as much as you want. That's helpful in some ways, but knowing yourself means feeling yourself. Knowing yourself means, especially as a woman, because the terrain of woman is so nuanced and so multi-layered, simple in its essence, very complex, very dynamic in its expression. So to know yourself means simply to know how to turn and listen without any need to change, and to let yourself reveal yourself to yourself. So, in simple terms, what I'm trying to say is that the deep feminine cure, the deep feminine healing for the state of being of I can't trust myself, I don't know where to find home here, I don't have my root, I don't have myself, is to know yourself, but to know how to know yourself. The world is going to tell you that you know yourself by knowing what you like and don't like, by becoming this, by achieving that, by doing this practice. You know, knowing yourself is actually a very simple, revelatory process. It's a way of turning toward your own being, reading your own book, right? Letting yourself show you who you are. And that comes from settling, taking the time to settle, sink back, and just turn your listening toward yourself without any need to change. That is how you know yourself. The world, what's outside of you, and much of what we've internalized from the world would shape us in all sorts of ways. And as responsive beings, as fluid beings, as feminine beings, we can meet pretty much any shape, honestly, unless we're rigidifying. But, you know, we can respond. We can move with things. But to know yourself is not to do that. It's to turn all that to stillness and to listen and let what is in you emerge. And that's the first step. Know yourself. The second step, the second step is to then be able to do something about that, right? So you can know yourself, but then how do you bring that knowing forward, up and out of you? You know, if you listen deeply and you hear a yes or you hear a no, or you feel an impulse towards or away from something, and it immediately runs into your own shoulds and questioning and your unwillingness to move with what you are, then that's your second level of addressing one of the causes of anxiety and self-betrayal and insecurity, is that you're not allowing yourself to move with what you know. How can you know what you know? How can you trust and feel your yes and your no, but then move with them? That's where you move from stillness, the stillness of knowing yourself, revealing yourself to yourself, into discerning action in the world that changes your life and that starts to show the rest of the world how to actually respond to you. So, discerning your yes and your no. You know, obviously there's the practice that I'm making available to work with that, and it's amazing. How could you do, you know, what can I give you right now that speaks to that? Feel it. Your yes is a feeling in your body. Your no is a feeling in your body. It's not in your mind and it's not in the culture. Neither one is going to tell you exactly what's up. Your body is going to tell you what's up. And start to notice. Are you aware of when you feel a yes? Do you know what that feels like? Have you ever taken the time to just take yes and feel it in your body and recognize that as a signpost for you? And to feel no in your body and to recognize that as a signpost for you. And then once you know those signposts, you get to watch and see how you actually act on those. Are you aligned with them, or are you fighting them? And that alliance with yourself is also part of restoring trust in yourself, right? So we've got knowing yourself, being willing to move with the knowing of yourself, both of which foster an actual trustworthy alliance inside of you that you can rest into. And, when you think about anxiety, you think about insecurity, you think about self-betrayal, all of those are just beckoning for, they want to feel ease, they want to feel secure. And that has to begin with you. In order for, it can be supported and upheld by men and women in your life that are integrity beings. But this level of security comes from inside. And so you do have to take the time. I guess part of what I'm wanting to invite you into and almost push you up against a little bit is this reality that this must be a priority. It's not a given. It's not been given by our cultures for the most part, especially as female beings that are working with what it is to be a woman incarnate, what it is to be this. This is not a given. This is worth caring for in yourself. These fundamental, how you sit with yourself. I would say one more cause for anxiety, self-betrayal, and insecurity is internalizing the world. So what that means is we often, because we're not encouraged or our lives aren't yet structured to make sure that we take the time to return home, we often just end up internalizing the world. We internalize pain, we internalize the push and the pull, we internalize what we think we should be, we generally internalize responsibility for all the things that go wrong around us or all the things that aren't working, because that's also an enculturated, a very conditioned response inside of women. So the cure for internalizing the world is to internalize your own power. And how do you internalize your own power? You seal it up. You take the time to sit, to feel what you know, to know what you know, and to actually, in its purest form, just understand and feel yourself. What does your power feel like? It doesn't look like anything. It starts as a reality inside of you, something that you rest into and then can express from. So to internalize your power means to fill your cup with yourself so that there is so much of you inside of this vessel, this being that you are, that you can't internalize the world, right? You can't become too absorptive, too porous, too reactive, and then therefore overwhelmed and lost, because your compass, you've lost yourself. These things are not, they can come out as this statement of like, I feel like I'm lost to myself, or I feel disoriented, or I feel anxious and out of control. It's great to name them, but what they are actually states of being. They are energetic states of being, and they boil down to some simple things like when your cup isn't full of yourself, it becomes full of way too many other things. And the cure for that is to fill with yourself. When you've lost your root, when you are anxious, because life is asking you to show up. Life is asking you to make choices. Life is asking you to meet whatever it might bring. If you don't know how you know your yes and your no, you don't know that you can trust yourself, anxiety is a very natural response. There's nothing wrong. A lot of us experience anxiety. A lot of us experience insecurity in relationship and otherwise. And it's not because we're broken and wounded and all the things that we think that we always try to fix about ourselves, right? There's another one, right? We think there's something wrong. These are natural responses to just not being at home inside of ourselves. If you're not at home inside of yourself, you're going to feel anxious. If you don't have any ground under you inside of your own being, you're going to feel insecure. And if you don't know what you know, and if you haven't liberated the freedom inside of you to act on what you know from the inside without apology, without negotiation, then you are going to betray yourself. It's just the way it is. So this is a strong call to you in whatever way to take the time and just name it as a priority, to taste your own essence as a woman, to know yourself, to turn toward, listen without any need to change, and receive what you are as a living, emerging being. States of anxiety, states of insecurity, choices to self-betray, these all come from, living outside of ourselves, right? From not being taught how to harness our own instincts, trust them, know them, discern what is true inside of us, and then to have the kind of, I want to say self-righteousness, it's not that, but have know the rightness then of acting on that, the necessity, the rightness, and the sacred necessity for all of the world of being a woman incarnate, understanding our compass, understanding your compass, and following it. So that's my kind of current, the feeling on my heart, the call to you to come home and let it be simple. Let things like insecurity, anxiety, and self-betrayal, they blow up and they become uncontrollable in a way, or they become very inflated states of being just because of what they are. And I want you to feel the ease of knowing how simple it is actually to come back home, and how it changes everything. So the simple way to do that is to stop, turn your listening toward yourself, and listen deeply without any need to change. Don't try to fix it. What's going on inside of you, whether it's anxiety, whether you think you betrayed yourself, whether you're feeling extremely insecure, whatever that is, there is a wisdom in it. There is a rightness in it, somewhere at the core of it. And just by listening and opening and being curious and allowing it to be what it is without any need to change is how you can start to find your way into your own being, in home. And when you actually come home here, the world doesn't need to change, and you don't need to fix everything, and there's nothing to fix in yourself because you're at home. And that's all that really we want in the first place, is to be here, to be in residency, and to trust that we will have what we need when we need it, because we're here and we know how to resource inside of ourselves and beyond ourselves, regardless of circumstance. So I would love it if you want to do the deep dives. These are practices, these things that I'm talking about, bringing things into energetic reality so that you live in them rather than talk about them or hope for them, is about practice. It's about taking the time, often being guided, sharing the experience of doing the practice of knowing yourself and of coming home. But in whatever way, to just acknowledge the need and the rightness of you and of what lives inside of you, no matter how it's expressing itself. to find your way to the true root that you can trust. Blessed be.